You are listening to the Emtech Group podcast series, your source for trends about automated QA testing for the insurance industry.
Tony, it's good to see you again. Well,
Good
or
catching
talk to
up.
you again. Talk to you again,
Yeah,
I guess I should say. Can't really see
yeah,
you now.
yeah. This is
So,
I like the regular check-ins and enjoy the dialogues. I mean, we should
yeah.
record more of our conversations. I think they're interesting. How about you?
Well, it depends what time of day it is. I think
Right.
they get more interesting as the day goes on.
Yeah, there you
But
go.
I wanted to take it slightly different conversation today. I wanted to talk a little bit about the digitization process, right? And where that leads because Um, I'm new to the industry. You're an old timer, if I may use the word old timer, as opposed to
Fair
been
enough.
around for a while. Um, so when did that process really kick into in earnest? And then let's talk about some of the issues that can come out of going down the process or following the process.
Yeah, I mean, I think digitization, um, geez, the internet certainly made that a lot easier for folks. I think as folks, general public became more acclimated to purchasing online, we were very reserved in our adoption rates. I would say, we were comfortable with buying books, and then, you got to the early 2000s, and people became quite comfortable with purchasing cars online. So there was a big push inside of financial services, kind of the insurance and retirement spaces to uh, take on the mindset of, well, if folks are comfortable with buying electronics and buying cars online, we should be able to provide a service level that is commensurate with everyday consumer goods. And so you've seen the digitization process boom. You've seen scale and growth and adoption run right along with it. And you now don't really see a lot of paper apps in out there. Maybe if folks are in an agent's office, but COVID certainly struck that out as well. A lot of virtual visits, a lot
Right.
of just online entry is where we're at as a normal course of business.
Yeah, that certainly that period certainly accelerated uptake and change in business process. I mean, it by virtue it had to.
Yep,
But
that's right.
so essentially, the modernization of the core systems is that the behind the scenes look at what people are trying to accomplish, or is digitization a separate um, set of processes, right? Or are they combined? They're
Oh, yeah.
conjoined.
Yeah. So modernization of core systems is a whole other separate evolution, right? I think carriers over time have begun to slowly whittle away at some of the peripheral systems that needed to be built and streamline that. But you still have a lot of core systems in place that are, quite cost effective to manage and maintain because the risk reward of swapping out, big calculators and millions of lines of old code just the cost benefit isn't there. So
Yeah.
you've got more streamlined systems to communicate with your old legacy systems. There's certainly efforts to modernize them, and hats off to those who do, uh, because it is a challenging undertaking, and ultimately it has to happen across the board someday. But that's an entirely different conversation altogether.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we'll
But
do one of those at night over some
yeah.
beers and maybe record it.
Well,
But that's quite an undertaking. But going back to, I guess to answer your question, it certainly is a separate endeavor to digitize and drive kind of the core client facing parts of the business. I'd say those are quite separated now, thanks to technology and
Right.
componentization and containerization, for that matter.
But they both propose or impose, I guess is a more dramatic way of saying, potential problems, right? Because if I'm laying technology over older systems with APIs in and out of the systems, or replacing the beloved COBOL, which I don't know if I told you that I studied computer science at university, and out of all the classes, COBOL was my best because I'm very grammatic, so I can put a period
Oh,
at the end
right.
of every line. So but in all seriousness, it regardless of which way I'm or which path I'm on, right?
Yeah.
Digitization or modernization, the risk to the business, right? Risk of mistakes or defects, if I use the industry word, right?
Yeah.
Bad things is present.
Yeah. So I think I could build off of the connection you're making. So if you're talking about core modernization, let's talk about kind of the integration piece, right?
Yeah,
Between the digitization, upfront new business modules, and getting data to my core system for a calculation, or getting my data to a data source, be it a data lake, or however we organize our data today. You may have to transform that data, or split it out, or map it so that your legacy systems can ingest it and create proper calculations. When you undergo that sort of data orchestration and fancy footwork, so to speak, that creates the greatest risk, right? Carriers do a lot of gymnastics to keep systems changes inside those core systems to a bare minimum, and so that means is a lot of peripheral calculations and transformations that are happening outside of it. And now you're talking the world of death by 1,000 cuts, potentially, because you
right,
can have specifically to financial results, you may have something that's off a few bucks a day, and it can go on for a year, or you got dividends applied across a group that come in from a fund, and your dividend calculation, isn't allocating them correctly, and you don't catch it for, a couple years. And, this is where quality tools really come into play.
right.
Um, and
Well,
no, I was going to say the best way to kind of counteract that defect leakage, right, would be to, go into your risk-based automated test suite, right? And as you identify changes that you're making to code, understanding your impacts, not just from a test coverage perspective on what you're able to certify, but also in your development inside of your code. Do you have good impact analysis tools that allow you to know for sure that these test cases or your automated test suite is in fact touching this part of the code or certifying this part of the code? I mean, you're getting into a whole big realm of risk mitigation from an automated test perspective that's crucial to digitizing your stack.
right. That's a huge benefit. I mean, the reality is product launches can happen more rapidly now, right? Um, Shifting
Well,
left
they
is
have to happen rapidly, right?
right,
I
right. Well,
mean,
but they
businesses
can too,
demand
right?
it. Yeah, and they can, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So you have the capability.
Yeah.
Now you always have the drive for better, faster, more, right? But where I was going with that is,
Yeah,
day two issues will always exist. They will persist, and
sure.
regardless of a process and what have you, right? You can't get to zero, but it does happen, and in an environment that's automated or an environment that's manual. So your comment about risk mitigation is if I have an automation approach, I can reduce day two issues because I'm aware of them sooner, then you can make a business decision on risk, right? But I'm not just testing something a little bit and then throwing it into the wild, so to speak. But there's always day two issues. So my question is, who is impacted the like where in the business does that impact hit? Like where is it felt?
Yeah, I mean every modernization effort I've been a part of, and I've got more than a baker's dozen under my belt. I think that day two concept is the scariest to operations folks. I mean, you say day two and the shoulders slump and the gray hairs develop. And there is a day two set of issues that should be adopted and understood, and it's very successful firms and product launches understand this, but they also understand the risk that they're taking. So when ops folks shrug or sulk, I should say, when they hear the term day two, it's because their IT departments aren't taking the time to measure what those impacts are with operations. The ones that do, uh, they're willing to go live with some defects and workarounds and day two issues, knowing that the impacts are covered, knowing that they've got an extra set of hands at the right time, know that they've been trained on those workarounds. And most importantly, they know when the day two item is going to get fixed because there's other product launches then that thus create more day two issues and exacerbate the day in the life of an ops person. And now you're getting into financial risk, or you're getting into scale issues within your operations workforce, or burnout, or things that are just they don't have to happen if you've got a data-driven approach to what you're going to mitigate. And in that IT operations partnership, uh, the successful programs I've been on, that IT operations partnership has been there. Um, and it's very important to have.
Yeah, I can. I would not want to be on the phones that day.
Yeah.
Day
Well,
three, maybe.
one of my favorite humans, he's no longer with us, unfortunately. Mike McKenzie. He was the head of operations at Mass Mutual Retirement, which is now Empower. But he, during a modernization effort that happened there, he traveled to different IT vendors with the CIO and IT folks to understand the software systems. And then Mike subsequently had his direct reports understand these vendor systems up front and understood that he was on the train to a better day with IT as opposed to,
Right.
IT doing something to operations, right? And kind of taking that passive role. He was someone that I learned a great deal from in terms of, a fearless look to tomorrow, top down, we're going to get through this type of approach. That I really, when I see it in kickoffs and in programs that I'm involved in today, that just it warms my heart because you're going places, you're not going to make decisions that are too expensive and delay launches, unnecessarily, but you also know that you're going to create an efficient operation and ultimately a better service organization as a result. So,
Right. So embrace it and drive it rather than waiting for it to hit you. Right. Now you're driving and inputting into the process and very, very aware
that's right.
of what it is. So then you get to miss what a dear friend called embarrassing errors.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, embarrassing errors. Going back to my good friend Mike, he would have IT people go to the call center and listened to some of the issues that
Oh,
that call center reps
nice.
had to deal with. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
if I'm gonna feel your pain, you're gonna feel my pain, and we're gonna
yeah,
jump off together, right? And it was a lovely way of building a partnership that was based less about fear and more about trust, building common purpose, and being able to be transparent with one another, so that if there was an issue that came up, at least you were on the same page and could tackle the issues together. So
yeah.
yeah, and so how do you keep that trust factor going, right? I mean, you guys see this now with the tools you're building, I would imagine quite a lot, right? Your tools are there to instill that confidence, really, to build that
Yes.
that partnership. So,
Yeah.
do you guys
That's ideally. Yeah.
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 So do you guys
Yeah.
see, like, operations getting pulled in, or different areas of the organization, intrigued in this automation work that you guys are building? It's got to be beyond IT at this point, right?
I believe it is for sure.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I think the other point of that is it allows IT to partner with the business rather than just being a function that gives you stuff, right? The business can learn to work very closely with, right? And
that's right.
like your example, rather than wait for it to be handed to you like an ice cream cone, take the initiative, work together, because at the end of the day, it's common goals, right? It's common goals. Sell as much as you can, keep everyone happy, especially your customers and employees, right? And you mentioned burnout. It's we've already
Yeah.
burned past our time again, and Tony, we got to keep the mic going. It's been good having another chat.
Yeah, great talking to you, Gary.
Yeah, you take
Catch up
care.
soon. You too.
Yeah.